You see this? I made this. I loved working on this, but we never got the chance to work on micro animations. We had dreams of creating animated icons and adding sound effects, but alas, it was not meant to be. Just FYI, those things are considered cosmetic features, and in a real project, they're going to get dropped for functional features, which this app is full of. This mobile banking app is packed to the brim with functional features. I'm really just patting myself on the back for this one. But the point of today's video, as you've seen in the title, is to make a navigation bar or a nav bar in basic and pro fashion. And if you couldn't pick up on the intro, the basic version's just gonna be extremely functional. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just nothing exciting about it. And in the pro version, I'll finally have the chance to explore micro animations in a nav bar. So make sure you stick around in this tutorial to see how we go from this design to this design. And maybe let me specify, we're doing all of this for mobile.
So as always, we start off by opening Figma. Wait. You haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel? Go ahead then.
So when you get into the Figma file, this is pretty much what you'll see. It's the basic versus pro navbar tutorial. Now I have this split into the basic section and the pro section, and I've set up activities here and there, as you can see here and here, that we're gonna go through during this tutorial. And you can go through it as well later on after the tutorial, or I guess right now, just go in the description, download the file, and you can follow along. So, basic and pro. So our definition of pro is basically just to work on the micro animations. Now, what is it exactly that we'll be animating? Well, it could be the background, it could be elements flying in and out, but we're gonna focus on keeping it simple and straightforward, which is animating the icons. So it's micro animations on the icons for the navbar. Now, if you don't know by now, I love myself some components and design systems. So if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. And we gotta make sure we do the basics. So as you can see here, I'm using my own personal design system, which is Muda01. Maybe I'll publish it one day, but if you don't have a design system yet, you can download the Tesla design system that I put up on Figma community and posted last week in the last video that we did, so just go check that out. Or I guess you can set one up yourself by following one of the tutorials that I have on my YouTube channel. Or I guess, you know, if you really want to be a rebel, you don't need one. So unlike how I usually do things, which is use a external icon set, we're actually going to bring the icons into this file because they actually play a really pivotal, integral role in how this nav bar is set up. After all, they are the things that we are animating, so we need to have a bit more control on them. So we're going to do the icons first, and this is where the magic happens. Now, for the basic version, you'll see that there's no magic, but for the pro version, that's where the proness comes out. Okay, so for activity 1, we're basically going to create a component set. So what I've done here is I've put all the icons in a component set, and you only need 2 states for this. So you have a on state or a selected state for the basic version, and a off state or an unselected state, or a resting state for the basic version. And that's it. You got a prototype, no interactions between them. You just got to create a component set. So you get 2 components that you want to use, which we have, or you get 2 icons that you want to use, which I've already set up here. And all you have to do is select them and go up here to these 4 diamonds at the top and click create component set. Now, if you want to set the state, you can go here, change it to selected. And then down here, you can set it to rest and just change the name. So we'll call it home. And we will change, oh, whoops, messed that up. The property would be state, and then we would call this home, which is already set to home, so it's fine. Practice on your own later. So we're done with activity 1. Okay, now on to activity 2, which is putting together the interactions between the pro icon. So we don't have to create the components yet anymore. I'm just gonna walk you through what the different states are here. So the 3 states allow us to do some interesting things with micro animations. We have the first state, which is rest, as we had before. And then we have a delay state because it's gonna take a delay to move from this state to the next one, and you'll see when we go on to the next exercise. And we have a final state, which is the selected state. Now I have this set up the same way for each one of these icons, and we'll just go into it. Now, also in a proper design system, we would have a hover state, but because this is mainly about the micro animations, we're just gonna leave that out for now to reduce the complication. But anyway, here is activity 2. Okay. Now I've prepared this prototype section here. When I click on this gear icon, nothing happens because we don't have the Smart Animate set up. Now, before we go into connecting the interactive components, let me explain to you what Smart Animate is, or at least go through the Smart Animate basics. So, the Smart Animate basics. Basically, you use Smart Animate to animate components between 2 different frames. So in this case, we have this frame, which is based off of the delay state, and we have the selected state. Okay, clear enough. Now, the first thing you need to know about Smart Animate is that it will move objects depending on where it was in frame 1 and where it is in frame 2. So as you can see here, all these pink dotted lines were once, the roof was up here, the pillars were on the side, and then in frame 2, it's all together in one space. Okay, now in order for these 2 frames to talk to each other, they have to use the same layer naming. So as you can see here, I've named every single layer the same. Pillar 2 is still pillar 2, pillar 1 is still pillar 1. Sometimes you mess things up and it will say pillar 3 and pillar 4. Make sure you check the layers so that the Smart Animate works and communicates. And then the second thing is when you go together to put the frames together, you have to set the animation style to Smart Animate. There are a few other options like Instant and Dissolve, but make sure you use Smart Animate so that it can animate. Okay, now back to activity 2. So this requires a animation between these 2. And the way we do that is we go to prototype mode. So there's design mode and there's prototype mode. Now in prototype mode, you'll see this blue circle, drag it down, and we're gonna set the animation style. So like I said earlier, the first one we're gonna do is after delay, which means we set this interaction method to after delay. And when you have a delay on a icon tap, you tend to not make it too long, and I find that 100 milliseconds is actually the perfect amount of time to, move your hand from the screen and also see the animation. So we'll set it to that. And then the animation style is set to Smart Animate. Now, I kind of like having a bounce on my animations, and so I have this custom motion path. And all you have to do is go down to custom, and then, you could move these around and set it yourself. But, to make things consistent, I'm gonna go here and paste that custom animation or custom motion that I had used on all the other ones. So there, that's basically it. There's an issue with interactive components that they can only play once, and I'll get to that in exercise 5, I think, but basically we're gonna go here and slide it up top. So every time you tap on this component, it will animate. That's what we want to achieve. So now we've set up our on-click animation or on tap for mobile, and we've set our after delay animation. So if we go here and we click on this, as you can see, it is now animating unlike before. Okay, so we're done with activity 2. Now on to activity 3. We're basically done with the icons, and we're moving on to creating the atom or build component of this navbar. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a .nav button. And the way we do that is we take our icon, so search icon, and let's go with the heart just cause. And now I'm gonna just type away, and this is going to be called label at the start. I always like to use label because you don't accidentally change the name. But let's see. Let's change the color of this. Okay, now when it's selected, I like to set it to bold, so we're gonna go with bold. I'm just gonna hit Command B. Now, as you can see, wait, let me undo this. Okay, now as you can see here, the text is already using text style from my own design system. If you download the Tesla design system, you'll get the exact same text style structure. So, you know, you can download that if you haven't yet. But we're gonna go to helper, and I'm gonna hit Command B to make it bold. And this is basically the main elements of this .nav build component. In order to get it to the right height and dimensions, I'm going to go ahead and click Shift A, which is basically turning into an auto layout container. It's not necessary, but I like doing things this way. And I'm just going to stretch this and stretch this so that now we can change the height settings to 54, which it already is, and the width settings to 56. Now, when we set this up, the auto layout is going to the width doesn't really matter because auto layout's going to be set, but just for, you know, this exercise we set it to 56. Now, in auto layout, we want to make sure it's centered. So right now it's not centered, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but let's just add a stroke to it so that you can tell. So as you can see, it's not centered. We're going to go ahead and center that. So boom. Okay, now let's undo this. Oh, whoops. Now let's remove this stroke. Okay, so that's basically our first component. We're gonna make the component, and then we're gonna make the unselected version of this. So let's go ahead and go back to helper. Now, the reason I don't use Lexend is because it's a different font, and my personal design system is set up a bit differently, but we're just gonna go ahead and hit helper, and then I'm gonna change this from selected to unselected. And that'll be our second component. Now, because I dragged from this component, you have to hit Command Option B in order to break the component, and then we'll turn this one into component. And now we can turn this into, combine them as variants. And there we go. We have our .nav button set. Now it's important that we have the dot there, so make sure you have the dot there. But yeah, I'll let you guys go in and change the property and the state names for this. But we're gonna move on to the next activity. So I'm gonna delete this because we already have this one and we don't need another one. Okay. So for the Pro version, I actually just did the exact same thing, except our selected icon isn't actually using the selected version. We are going to be using the delay version because the delay transitions to the selected version, and that's what we want. As to why I made 4 of these, or like 4 sets of this, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's just I wanted to show that you could do things 2 different ways. You can either do it 1 component or 1 .nav component, or you could do 4 sets of .nav components. So either way is valid. Don't worry about it too much. Now on to activity 4. So you can actually turn the basic version into an interactive component, and this probably works a lot better for the basic than it does for Pro, and I'll get to why it doesn't work for Pro later on. But basically, what we're going to want to do is connect each one of these components to the variant inside its component set. So we're gonna start with the saved one, and we go back to prototype and we go here and drag it down. And as you can see here, it's on click and it changes to favorites. We need to change the name because I changed the name to save. So let's just go ahead and change favorites to saved. Okay, so when we drag it down, it gets dragged down to saved. And basically we wanted to turn off Smart Animate for this because we don't need it. It just has to be instant. So instant is set. And now what we're gonna wanna do is copy this across. So maybe we just wanna do a test. So let's just open this up. Let's just test it out, yeah? Okay, so it works. Now that we know that it works, I'm just gonna copy this across and paste it into each one of these other components. Now, a trick to replace a component is you hit Command Option Shift V, and it'll replace the component that's there. So all of the modifier keys, you just press them together. And there. So the benefit of doing it this way is that it maintains the interaction that was previously there, which means we don't have to do the drag and drop thing again. Now, let me just show you that again for the wallet. So we go down to here. Okay. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can actually select two different components and paste them at the same time. So we're going to replace these two by holding Command Option Shift V, and they're both pasted. Now I'm just going to continue with the rest. Okay, we're done. So let's test it out. This works, this works. Okay, we don't need to test settings, but basically everything works. Beautiful. Okay, so for activity 5, it's basically the same thing, except we actually do want to set up Smart Animate now. So I'm going to use Smart Animate, ease out, and 300 for the duration. Okay, it's done. You see that? You see that 2-layer rotation? It does its first rotation, then it does the second one. Beautiful. And although this is blurred, you can actually see that the heart and the wallet behaves the same way. And if we press it multiple times, it plays. Okay, now, which that means we're on to activity 6, which is putting together the actual components. And basically our final phase of this tutorial. So if you're wondering where these screens came from, I basically made a Coinbase recreation video a while ago. And this is basically Coinbase, but modified to fit our Navbar scenario. If you want, you can also download this file in Figma community. So just go check me out at Izzy. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and paste all the basic nav bars here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the nav bars on each one of these screens. But I'm gonna teach you a little shortcut on setting up prototypes. So instead of copying them all first, we're gonna make sure we have the links set first. Now I'm gonna set this to, or I'm gonna leave it at Smart Animate because later on when we transition from this version to the Pro version, it's just gonna make things easier. Nope, okay. Well, you'll have to link back to home later on then. So we paste this here, and as you can see, all the links should still be set up. And we can put home there, and now we can just replace the home one. Okay. And paste it here. Paste this one here. And now we can go ahead and change the active icon. Okay, now let's test this out. Ooh, you see how it's a long page like this and not a phone display? Well, we're gonna have to click here, click on prototype, and make sure you're not selecting any frames, and change this from presentation to iPhone 10. Okay, now it's in frame. And as you can see, it's sticky to the bottom, everything's beautiful, and when we click on this, beautiful. Look at that transition. Now, to be completely honest, even though we said there's a basic version and pro version, a lot of professionals just do it this way, and including myself, because it works. That's what matters. But when you're trying to have a bit of fun, we go on to the pro version. So now let's take this and put together the pro version. Okay, so I'm just gonna duplicate this because I don't want to have to lose our basic setup. But what we can now do very easily and very nicely is change these to another component, which is the pro version. And as you can see here, all the icons are still highlighted the way they were supposed to be because of the way we set up our components. See, the beauty of setting up components and doing proper design system stuff makes work so much faster. Okay. Now let's play this one. We'll call this one Pro. And we'll call this one Basic. Okay, now it shows up here. Now, if you look at our pro icons, look at this. Oof, what? I don't know why it's bouncing. These links aren't set, damn it. But I also have no idea why it was bouncing. That's so bizarre. Okay, anyway. We're gonna have to reset the layers, so apparently it didn't matter that we set Smart Animate the first time because they broke when we changed the component. So let's just go in and do it one by one. Look at that. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. Okay, we gotta turn off these hints. Okay, now remember how I said that interactive components don't really work with Figma that well? Well, this is what I mean. The animations only happen once, and then that's why we had to set up that trigger to play them again. But when you're working with devs, you only kind of need to show it to them once, and then they'll understand, or like at least communicate with them. Tell them how it's supposed to be and they can build it the way it's supposed to be built. But for demonstration purposes, this is beautiful. Yes, yes, not bad, not bad. Okay, that's pretty much the video. That's a tutorial. That's as far as it goes. Now let's wrap this up. So I feel like I've gotten into the habit of not introducing myself at the start of the video, but my name is Izzy Muda, and this is Muda Experience because I am a user experience designer or UX designer, or another title would be product designer. Now, if you don't know what that is, well, basically I make mobile apps, websites, and from time to time, YouTube videos. And trying to be more consistent, I said I'd post on Thursday, and here we are. So, you know, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. It's not very similar to last week's, but it's quick and educational. Let me know if you want to learn something else. Let me know what you thought of the structure. And I'll catch you in the next video, which will be most likely next week on Thursday. Also, hit like and subscribe because that would be great. We're at 940 subscribers right now, and you know, everyone's goal is 1,000. So, you know, you keep bumping the buttons. Okay, I guess I'll catch you next week.
So that's pretty cool.